Poem of the Week number 23 from Spring by James Thomson, 1700 to 1748. First published on the 16th of January 2022. This is an extract from part of a larger poem by Thomson entitled The Seasons. The entirety of it can be read on the website. Link is in the description. And yet the wholesome herb neglected dies in lone obscurity, unprized for food, although the pure, exhilarating soul of nutriment and health, salubrious breathes, by heaven infused along its secret tubes. For with hot ravine fired and sanguine manned is now become the lion of the plain, and worse, the wolf, who from the nightly fold fierce drags the bleating prey, ne'er drunk her milk, nor wore her warming fleece, nor has the steer, at whose strong chest the deadly tiger hangs ere ploughed for him. They too are tempered high, with hunger stung and wild necessity. Nor lodges pity in their shaggy breasts, but man, whom nature formed of milder clay, with every kind of motion in his heart, and taught alone to weep, while from her lap she pours 10,000 delicacies, herbs and fruits, as numerous as the drops of rain, or beams that gave them birth, shall he, fair form, who wears sweet smiles and looks erect on heaven, ere stoop to mingle with the prowling herd and dip his tongue in blood? The beast of prey, 'tis true, deserves the fate in which he deals. Him from the thicket let the hardy youth provoke, and foaming through the awakened woods with every nerve pursue. But you, ye flocks, what have ye done? Ye peaceful people, what to merit death? You who have given us milk in luscious streams and lent us your own coat against the winter's cold, whose usefulness in living only lies, and the plain ox, that harmless, honest, guileless animal, in what has he offended? He whose toil, patient and ever ready, clothes the land with all the pomp of harvest, shall he bleed, and wrestling groan beneath the cruel hands even of the clowns he feeds? And that perhaps to swell the riot of the gathering feast won by his labour. This the feeling heart would tenderly suggest, but 'tis enough, in this late age, adventurous to have touched light on the numbers of the Samian sage. High heaven beside forbids the daring strain, whose wisest will has fixed us in a state that must not yet to pure perfection rise. James Thomson's The Seasons was included in Wilde's list of books not to be read at all. I'm not sure to what extent this was seriously meant. It is hard to imagine Wilde ever being serious about anything at all, nor on what grounds he included it, though I hope it wasn't purely aesthetically motivated. One of the most popular poets of his day, I believe he has been unjustly forgotten. He is one of the finest and most fluent craftsmen of blank verse in English, as good as any, and in contrast to the age in which he lived, bounteous of wit yet barren of soul, Thomson's poetry stands out by containing a sensibility and humanity that presages the romantic movement that would kick off towards the end of his century. Thomson's artistic sensitivity also extends to an ethical one in the extract above. It is naive to assume that a good poet must also be a good human being, yet poetry in its best manifestations is always one that exudes feelings and thoughts that are morally noble, upright and universally humane. It is hard in those moments not to see those qualities as grafted to the very fibre of their human vehicle, and so I cannot help, when reading the lines above, but imagine that Thomson was anything other than a good bloke. Where love dwells, it must also extend beyond itself to encompass all forms of life. A compassion that does not do so is tainted and incomplete. Think of how inhumane, not to mention psychopathic, we consider someone who remains cold-blooded and unflinched in the face of a suffering animal. And in regard to mankind's relation to animals, particularly in our slaughtering and eating of them, Thomson points out one of the most infuriating hypocrisies of our condition. The predating animal does not pity his prey, yet man, born, and I quote, with every kind of motion in his heart, and taught alone to weep, shall he fair form, who wears sweet smiles and looks erect on heaven, ere stoop to mingle with the prowling herd, and dip his tongue in blood. End quote. How much more infuriating this is when one considers how far humanity has morally progressed, and yet how, with the industrialization of agriculture, our treatment of animals has at the same time become far worse, with unprecedented levels of brutality on scales that are almost unimaginable, beyond Homeric, beyond biblical. I cannot think of a greater example of callous, hypocritical human selfishness when I remind myself that we do this because our tastes take precedence over our moral responsibilities. There will, mark my words, come a time when mankind superates this stumbling block in our development, and we will look back at our current complacency and complicity in this crime with bafflement and horror, much as we look back today in shock at the complacency and complicity of good, ordinary people in the perpetuation of slavery. I hope my reader will in the end stand on the right side of history in this question. Who knows? If the book burnings of cancel culture are still ablaze at that time to engulf all the authors who ate meat and did not repent of their ways, perhaps it will at least spare the works of Thomson at the unfortunate expense of just about everyone else.